Hi, this is Rashmi. We run a social impact enterprise called Studio Coppre. We're based in Pune, India. And today I'd like to talk to you a little about what we do, what our inspirations were, and really what motivates us to do the kind of work we do. So basically we are addressing two needs through our project. One, the need to have an inclusive growth for handcrafting artisans in India. That is to make sure that artisans are brought into the socio-economic mainstream. And the second need is to address the need of customers for high quality handcrafted wares. Graphic design, consultancy firm, initially along with a friend and later on along with my spouse. While the work was great we had a number of projects and they were wide ranging from designing, let's say, a table fan to a telephone. This was about, let's say, 15 years ago. And we did toothbrushes, we did a lot of packaging work, packaging design work. We also did many exhibitions in most of the important exhibitions of the time in India. And a lot of graphic design work, which included collaterals for many of the big corporates. Well, our studio was buzzing, and yes, we had a lot of work. But for me personally, there was something missing. And I wasn't very happy with the selection I wasn't very happy with what went out to the customer eventually in terms of the designing we did. While I was convinced about the work and about the market acceptability of our designs, what I was unhappy with was the actual selection that happened at the marketing level of the companies we worked with. We had visitors who came in to Pune, and they wanted to see what was special about Pune. And so one of the things I always took them to was this craft cluster called Tambatali, which was in the heart of Pune. And this craft cluster comprised artisans who worked, basically coppersmiths. So it's actually a 400-year-old craft dating back to the time of when Pune was a small settlement. Basically, Tambatali comprises artisans who are coppersmiths, and primarily they work with the material copper. Tambat in the local language Marathi means copper. And they're very closely identified with this material. Generations of artisans from Tambatali have worked with copper. Discerning feature about this craft is the beaten work, the hand beaten work. And each artisan has his own style.
What is this product? This is...
Okay, so this is a fruit platter. It's made from a sheet. So these craftspeople work with sheets, and there are various ways of working with metal. You can pour metal, you can machine it from a block or a plate, or you can take a sheet and shape it up. So the basic process of this is that craftspeople acquire sheets and they cut them up into circles, and the circle is placed against a die or a mold, and copper being soft, it's at a speed, it is pressed against the mold to give it a shape. Later on, it is hand beaten.
So the texture that I see on this is all created by hand?
It's completely handmade, and for an object like this, we've counted there could be close to around 3,000 strokes of the hammer.
So what does the hammer tone do to the product itself?
So copper is a soft material, and for it to retain a shape, what you need to do is the beaten work gives it a strength. It's much like paper folding. If a sheet of paper is folded, it's stronger. In the same way, beaten work gives copper a strength, which helps maintain the dimensions of the product. And the other thing is that copper is easily, it shows up scratches. Since it's soft, it shows up defects and it shows up scratches. So the beaten work hides these imperfections in both the making and the original material itself.
Now, when I look at this texture and I look at this, I see that they're different. These look like squarish marks, and this has a different shape. How does that happen?
Yeah, so there are, so the artisans use different hammerheads to achieve the hand beaten work. Each artisan has his signature style. So if you look at the products that we worked with over the past years, we can by now tell which artisan has worked on which product.
So there's a unique signature in each product of the artisan who's worked on it.
That's right. And which of course comes, it's a combination of, the beaten work is a combination of the profile of the hammerhead and the profile of the base in between which the copper product is sandwiched when the beaten work is done.
So the anvil and the hammer.
Yes, the anvil and the hammer, basically. More or less we define what kind of beaten work we want on each product, depending on the proportion of the product, the size, the use, and the overall impact and effect that we want the product to have. The other thing that the beaten work does is that it imparts a kind of a shine to the product. So the numerous facets created by the beaten work make it react differently in different kinds of light, and gives copper a nice blingy look, which is a feature of this craft community in Pune.
So can you tell us about this product? How was this shaped, and how was the texture created, and what purpose it serves?
Okay, so basically most of the products that we work with, or most of the products that we've designed, are, I think, a good marriage between functionality, utility, the material itself, and the traditional handworking process. Traditionally in India, drinking water out of copper has been known to have certain health benefits. So we've utilized that, or rather we've been inspired. We've been inspired by this fact, and we've created what we call a bedside carafe. It's in a new avatar. It has a modern appearance, but yet it keeps the traditional handcrafting process as well as a traditional inspiration.
So in a sense, what I see here, it's a beautiful object, it has the utility as well, and you've sustained a certain tradition over the years.
That's right. We wanted this to be a standalone kind of piece that you could, place next to your bedside and fill it the night before. And the first thing you do in the morning is you pour out your 2 glasses of water, and that's copper charged water is good first thing in the morning. So basically we've incorporated a glass as well. So it's one complete product. You don't have to run around for a glass.
And new research also shows that copper has antimicrobial properties, and so it's been used in hospitals these days as well for things like railings and countertops, etc.
That's right. So we've run some lab tests with water that's kept in contact with copper, and we found that the microbial count of the water goes down over a period of 8 hours. So obviously there is some wisdom in the traditional idea that copper charged water is good for health.
So do you work closely with the artisans in Tampatali?
Yes, very closely. In fact, when we prototype our products, it's a long process of sitting side by side with the artisan and figuring out the problems of a new product. Traditionally, artisans are used to working on the same products for generations. So let's say you're born into an artisanal family. You've seen the same product being fashioned year on year by, let's say, your father, your brothers, your uncles, and the extended community. So in a sense, that it's not a learning that is you have to do in a classroom. It's a learning that happens because of the environment you're brought up in. Whereas when we introduce new designs and we have a design intervention with craft communities and artisans, at every instance, the artisan has to relearn a product, has to do learn a new design, which is quite time consuming. So most of our pieces we like to treat as heirloom pieces, which you can pass down generations. For instance, if you gift this to somebody, copper is a material that is 100% recyclable.
It's very sustainable.
It's very sustainable. And at the same time, you can pass it from generation to generation. So we like to treat the products that we work with, and that's the underlying concept to our products.
Mm-hmm. What I find really remarkable about these products is that they're incredibly unique in their appearance. They're beautiful. There's a tradition that's involved in them. They're also extremely durable. If you can pass this on from generation to generation, they can live a long time. And they carry a story, right? They carry a story of design, a story of craft, and a story of tradition that exists only in this part of Pune in India.
That's right. So some of our products have new interpretations, like for instance, this to the craftspeople would be just a disc. Whereas
so you would not be used to making something like this?
Not at all. Whereas this one they've seen in their communities and in their families, and this they identify with closely. So there are some products which are a little alien, whereas there are some which are very closely, which the craftspeople are closely associated with. More familiar with. Craftspeople, when we started working with them, they were skeptical. They said that, who's going to buy these products? Because they've been used to supplying and working for traditional markets. Let's say they had a bunch of around 10 to 12 designs, which they've been making for generations. But somewhere around the 80s, with the coming of steel and plastics in India, the market for copper products saw a decline. And the main reason for that was there were no new interpretations in terms of designs, and no reaching out to new markets. We're a team of 4 people, 4 women. I do most of the designing, which means doing the prototyping, helping the craftspeople develop new tools, explaining the processes to the craftspeople for a new product, also a lot of the quality checking, and basically right up to all the design processes that are involved up to the first batch production. We have Chanda. She looks after the finances and the production and timely deliveries, which is difficult in a craft project. So she takes care of that. Sudakshina looks after market outreach. She's always talking to customers, figuring out customer needs, and also building new markets. Simantani looks after online marketing. We have a presence on all social media, and basically she pitches this project in the digital space. All of us are involved with product planning. So from time to time we have to put our heads together, to discuss where we can take copper, what our customer needs are, how we can create new markets for copper, and how new products can be made so as to access these markets.